I meant by reverse Warhol is that Warhol was putting pop into art. He was taking the celebrity, Marilyn, and putting her on the canvas. And now that this image of Marilyn on the canvas has been repeated and sold in commercialism, right? Repeated, it's become everywhere. And now it's fast food. But there was a time when it was not. Now, this was what Warhol's intention was, which is beautiful. He won, how fantastic. But now there is this creative need for us to explode into a new space. And what that space is we've come completely full circle. Now that Marilyn controls everything, it's time for art to control culture. Not for pop to control culture, but for art to control pop culture. So art pop is all about putting art culture into pop music. And from the beginning of my career, this was always a mantra and a philosophy. And I named the album Art Pop because I wanted to define that that philosophy for myself, as I felt that I've contributed and been a part of it so much from the beginning that I took helm of this idea and I made a record that I really truly believe in. It mirrors my creative process, it mirrors the inside of my brain, it mirrors my sort of collage approach to music, just cutting and pasting and snipping and sewing things like a couture atelier gown. That's what I do, so that's what art pop is.
In a jam-packed year of high-profile releases like 2013 lies a body of work that is quite possibly one of the most polarizing records in modern pop music, one that I've seen public opinion change on in real time over the decades since its release. It's an album labeled as a flop, marked as the end of the careers of one of the greatest pop stars that ever lived, one who managed to make a firm imprint in pop music just a mere 5 years into her career. The album in question was something that was truly ahead of its time in every way imaginable, immeasurably distinct from all of its contemporaries, and unlike anything you would ever hear on the radio at the time. A body of work that could only be born from the wickedly artistic, creative, talented, yet misunderstood mind of the one and only Lady Gaga. The album in question is none other than Art Pop. Lady Gaga's second studio album and third release overall, Born This Way, was about making a statement and creating a timeless body of work. Born This Way is carried by anthems and an ultimate uplifting message that is carried throughout the entire album. Born This Way adopted a sense of responsibility and maturity with its themes and its far more direct messages in its lyrics. For Art Pop, Gaga's focus would solely be on creating an experience, something she described as a celebration and a poetic musical journey. Art Pop is characterized by its intentional lack of maturity and responsibility in stark contrast to the anthemic and uplifting nature of Born This Way. As opposed to building upon her previous release like she'd done before, Art Pop would be a direct opposition to Born This Way in almost every way.
Because, everybody went on about all the clothes, right? And all the makeup and the wigs, and why does she always cover up? So I decided that I would use this opportunity to tell you why. I was willing and will always be willing to risk it all for what I believe in. So here I am, the human underneath the wigs.
For Art Pop, I, in the most metaphorical explanation, stood in front of a mirror and I took off the wig and I took off the makeup and I unzipped the outfit and I put a black cap on my head and I covered my body in a black catsuit and I looked in the mirror and I said, okay, now you need to show them you can be brilliant without that. And that's what Art Pop is all about, because I knew that if I wanted to grow, if I really wanted to innovate from the inside, I had to do something that was almost impossible for me. Art Pop possesses a lot of contradicting and contrarian aspects, doing so many things all at once. Overwhelming to some, perhaps interpreted as unfocused or messy, but to me it is simply artistic chaos that works in the album's favor. Prior to Art Pop, Gaga's innovation was strongest visually rather than musically. Her music had always had unique qualities to it that set it apart from her contemporaries. It's what made her the pop icon that she is. But the crux of Lady Gaga's eccentricity has always been in her fashion, her visuals, and her stage shows. Gaga admitted to being increasingly self-conscious at the peak of the Born This Way era and made a conscious decision to refine her image a bit for the art pop era. The eccentricity that she was known for was still very present during this era, albeit a little more understated. Instead of shocking the world and making people talk with how she looked, she wanted to elicit the same feeling with the music itself. The result is the diverse, experimental, and frantic rave-like sound that art pop is known for and was always meant to be. It was supposed to elicit that crazy, drugged-up, sexy, intoxicated feeling. At its core, art pop is an electronic album. Its sound was actually what was intended for Born This Way, however Gaga opted to move in a more rock direction with that record. Art pop's EDM landscape is elevated by R&B, techno, disco, and rock flavors all over, resulting in 15 songs that sound nothing like one another, but together create a cohesive musical equivalent to abstract art or high fashion. Art pop is truly something that no other mind on this planet could have created. It is Lady Gaga at her most pure, unfiltered creative peak, whether you like it or not. It is a pastiche of everything Gaga had done up until that point, taken to a higher degree, yet somehow being incomparable to anything that preceded it. A critic from the Daily Telegraph described the album perfectly, saying, "It's like wandering drunk around a vast labyrinthine club and peering into a disorienting series of darkened rooms in which she tries on various musical genres as if they were hats." In early 2013, Lady Gaga was on the last leg of her world-spanning Born This Way ball tour in support of the album of the same name. After the cancellation of some shows due to an injury, she was eventually forced to cancel the remainder of the tour due to a tear in her right hip caused by the complex choreography she'd been performing almost every night for the past year. After being forced into a 6-month hiatus, during which she would need to undergo surgery, Gaga studied art and literature, reviewing and enhancing her creative direction. Although initially having the album forced to be pushed back due to her injury seemed inconvenient, it allowed Gaga time to reevaluate the album and make it even more of the abstract masterpiece that she desired.
When I was writing The Fame, I was struggling to be noticed as an artist. And then when I wrote The Fame Monster, there was a mixture of some records I had written already, as well as songs that I wrote as my fame began to grow. And Born This Way, this was an album where I put it all on the line. I said I want to do something that if I die tomorrow, I leave my mark on the world in terms of change, in terms of message. And art pop is a celebration of Born This Way and The Fame Monster and The Fame. It is my way of acknowledging something that is happening naturally in culture. The art that was obsessed with commercialism is now running commercialism. This is what I'm really interested in, and the album reflects that.
On July 11, 2013, Lady Gaga posted an image that most prominently featured 3 important dates: the single, which was to be released on August 19th, the pre-order for the album and app on September 1st, and the album and app release on November 11th. A brief description follows, laying out the genesis of the era to come, with the final paragraph reading, "The album Art Pop musically mirrors Gaga's creative process as she passes through the mediums of each artist she collaborates with, scoring a blueprint of her journey. The result, a rage of electronic passion and fury defining each artistic process from beginning to end. Art Pop could mean anything, but for her, this is a celebration of obsession." Art pop was meant to be more than just an album, era, or even an experience. It was meant to be a multifaceted project unlike anything ever seen in mainstream pop music, a coalescence of music, art, pop culture, fashion, and technology, with Lady Gaga as the conduit for such a marriage. But as the era began to take shape, this ambitious endeavor would unfortunately not go as planned. On August 12, 2013, Gaga's first single in 2 years, Applause, was released as the lead single from Art Pop, being released a week earlier than planned due to the song being leaked. An ode to the art of performance, the song was inspired by the cheering of Gaga's fans, who kept her motivated throughout her Born This Way ball as she continued despite being in pain due to her injury. Applause is ultimately about Gaga's dependency on her fans' adoration and her love for performing. I realized it was the applause of the fans that really kept me going, because I would be ready to go on stage and just be crying hysterically, not understanding even how I was feeling. I was feeling very dizzy, I had a lot of vertigo, I had pain, but it's like If I know what hurts the most because I'd been on tour for a year, but I didn't want to let them down and I just couldn't cancel because the thought of leaving 50,000 kids in the arena just broke my heart. So I went out every night and I played and I played and I played until I couldn't walk one night. Gaga reportedly played approximately 40 songs for her record label while trying to select a lead single for ARTPOP. Applause was the last song that she played and her label loved it. However, the song was actually not supposed to make the final track list of the album due to the sheer amount of material that she recorded for ARTPOP. Gaga's intention was actually the song Aura to be the lead single, but once her label showed their preference for Applause, it was added to the album and chosen as a lead single. Applause's release date coincided with the release of a comeback single from another pop icon, and this coincidence would trigger one of the biggest stan wars ever. Everybody remembers where they were during the Little Monsters Katy Cats War of 2013. Katy Perry's Roar was released 2 days prior to Applause as the lead single from her then forthcoming album Prism. Almost instantly, comparisons were drawn between the two songs, as well as a feud being dredged up between the two singers' fans. However, it should be noted that neither Katy nor Gaga ever played into this war, although Roar would outchart and outsell Applause by a wide margin. Applause was nowhere near the runaway timeless worldwide smash hit in the same vein as Just Dance, Poker Face, Bad Romance, or Born This Way, but it still managed to top the charts in 5 countries and break the top 10 in countless others, including the United States, where it peaked at number 6 and remained in the top 10 for 14 weeks. Despite this, the song's performance in comparison to Gaga's previous singles was used as ammo for the eventual Lady Gaga is over arguments. Gaga debuted Applause live during her comeback performance as the opener of the 2013 MTV Video Music Awards, where she paid tribute to her previous eras. Just a few days after her VMA performance, Lady Gaga would take the stage in London as the headlining performer at the 2013 iTunes Festival, a performance that she dubbed SWINEFEST. This iconic performance is notable for a few reasons. One, for its relatively stripped down and raw look, which was totally unlike Gaga prior to then, but also due to the fact that Gaga debuted not 1, not 2, but 7 new songs live. Aura, Manicure, ARTPOP the Song, Jewels and Drugs, Sex Dreams, Swine, and a song titled I Wanna Be With You, which would later be reworked and renamed Dope. I vividly remember the absolute hype that I felt watching the live stream of this performance. I'd never seen anything like this before. Seeing her perform all these new songs that we'd never heard before made me absolutely ecstatic for ARTPOP, and mind you, I had already been heavily anticipating this album all year. It's also worthy of note that the versions of a lot of the songs that she performed here are not the same as what would eventually make the album. Some of the differences are slight, such as different vocals on Aura, but some songs had their entire bridges or choruses changed, such as with Manicure or Sex Dreams. On September 3rd, 2013, Gaga asked her fans to help her choose the second single from ARTPOP, with the options being Manicure, Sex Dreams, Aura, and Swine. Despite this, she ignored all of that and announced Venus as the planned second single from ARTPOP. The song's most obvious inspiration is Venus, the Roman goddess of love. The painting, The Birth of Venus, heavily inspired the brown wig and seashell look that Gaga wore throughout the ARTPOP era, arguably becoming the emblematic look of the era. The literal planet of Venus, as well as literal sexual intercourse, are also inspirations for the song. Venus is one of the cornerstone tracks of ARTPOP, being one of the first songs developed for the album and set the tone and direction for the rest of it. It was almost completely self-produced by Gaga as well. Although it was originally intended to be the official second single from the album, Venus ultimately ended up being relegated to the album's first promotional single in favor of another song that was released at roughly the same time, and that song would prove to be the most controversial of Gaga's entire career.
Once you have, so many people's attention, and once you have so much, they think that, as a female, that it's better for me to make inconsequential music and not assert that I'm a musician, not assert that I'm a producer, not assert that I'm a songwriter, not assert that I'm a performance artist. I think that's the thing that poisoned me. That was the poisonous thing. We just want you to look beautiful. And it really crushed me. Like, really? I've won Grammys now. I've written albums. I've toured the world 4 times. You're telling me to be beautiful? That's what this is about? Is it all back to tits and ass? That's so sad.
Do What You Want featuring R. Kelly was released as the second official single from ARTPOP on October 21st, 2013. Originally meant to be a promotional single, its widespread positive reception upon its release and its appeal to a widespread audience compared to Venus caused the two songs to be switched, with the former being pushed as a proper single and the latter being a promotional single instead. Gaga and her frequent collaborator at the time, DJ White Shadow, had actually come up with the concept for the song 2 entire years prior to its release. An electropop and R&B fusion, the lyrics of Do What You Want discuss the media's appetite for publishing opinion and critique, with Gaga telling her detractors that her thoughts, dreams, and feelings are her own no matter what they do with, think of, or publish about her body. The song's inspiration came from a time when Gaga was angered by a news article discussing her weight. Do What You Want's sound was also inspired by her desire to create something different from her past hit singles. Despite being a moderate success, similarly to Applause, Do What You Want did not fare as well as previous songs in Gaga's catalog, not even breaking the top 10 in the United States, peaking at number 13. The song received 2 remixes, one in the form of a duet between Gaga and Christina Aguilera, the latter of whom replaced R. Kelly's vocals. The other version features a rap verse from Rick Ross for some reason or another. Addressing the elephant in the room, Do What You Want is a classic case of being controversial for all the wrong reasons. Personally, this is one of my favorite Gaga songs, but it's very unfortunate that it had to be attached to a very vile man. Given the subject matter of the song, her body being scrutinized by the media, it's supposed to be something that's uncomfortable. But it definitely would have benefited everyone if she had just left R. Kelly off the song, or even tapped another male R&B vocalist to do it. The song's music video was ultimately canceled for unknown reasons. However, given that the video was about somebody's body being touched without their permission, and given that R. Kelly was on the song as well as the director being an alleged predator, it was just a bad idea all around, and one that Gaga was right to scrap. All versions of Do What You Want featuring R. Kelly have since been removed from all streaming platforms and new vinyl and CD pressings of ARTPOP. To date, the only official version of the song available on streaming services is the Christina Aguilera version. Dope was released on November 4th, 2013 as the second promotional single from ARTPOP and the final song released prior to the album's release. A dark and somber song that laments on substance abuse as well as a long-lost love, Dope came from Gaga's previous addiction to drugs that she developed while recovering from her surgery, as well as coping with her impromptu hiatus after the cancellation of the Born This Way Ball tour. Dope is actually a reworked and renamed version of the song I Wanna Be With You, which Gaga debuted at the iTunes Festival 2 months prior. She has called it one of the most personal songs she has ever done. Despite being only a promotional single, Dope debuted at number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100, becoming Gaga's 13th top 10 hit in the United States and her highest charting promotional single to date. Though not officially released as a single, ARTPOP's opening track, Aura, is one of the standout tracks on the album, perfectly setting the tone of the record. So much so that, as I previously mentioned, Gaga wanted the song to be the album's lead single, and I agree with her decision as it would have set the tone of the era perfectly. The song's demo leaked earlier in 2013 prior to ARTPOP's release under the original title Burqa, but eventually the title was changed to Aura. This is really a song that is about a lot of different things, but what it is really is that people have a certain perception of me because I wear a lot of very visual fashion and I'm a very creative person. So this song is about me basically saying that just because all of those things are there, that doesn't mean there's not sort of the same person underneath. And then also that these veils are just protecting me from the thing that I hold most sacred, which is my creativity. And so it's really my aura, is the way that I deal with my insanity, and I feel quite insane. So the song sounds quite insane. Aura truly felt like the essence of ARTPOP, which is why it's the first song on the album, as well as the originally intended lead single. It truly feels like a missed opportunity for the era. The song is also noteworthy for being the supposed assumed third act in the trilogy that started with Gaga's 2009 Paparazzi video and continued with the 2010 Telephone video with Beyonce.
Hello, my name is PETGA. I am the interface of this application. Before you can exist in the universe of ARTPOP, I must first generate your aura.
The ARTPOP app launched as scheduled alongside the album on November 11, 2013. The app was meant to enhance the ARTPOP experience, containing many different features including listening to the album in the app itself, chatting with other little monsters, as well as having Gaga-inspired games, updates, and more. The ARTPOP app would even act as a platform for Gaga to release extra unreleased tracks from ARTPOP, as well as having users be able to create their own music and art. Again, Gaga was adamant about ARTPOP being more than just a music release. It was a project, and the app was just one of many projects to come. The ARTPOP app was truly meant to be a revolutionary and unique way of releasing music. Upon the app's launch, many of the planned features were missing, and Gaga and her team promised they would come at a later date. The features never came, however, and Gaga eventually parted ways with the company responsible for the app's development. Funding for the app was cut, and it sat stagnant until its decommissioning in 2015. On March 23, 2014, the Zedd-produced song g.u.y was released as the third and final single from ARTPOP. The song Gypsy was previously supposed to be the third single, however plans shifted and g.u.y was chosen instead. g.u.y, or g.u.y, stands for Girl Under You, although during the song's development it stood for Go Under You. An ode to new wave feminism, it is an EDM song that discusses gender roles, mostly in the context of sex, and how Gaga expresses how she can still be dominant while being sexually submissive. It is an interesting concept that makes the song one of the standouts on the album. The song failed to break the top 40 in most countries, faring worse than even the promotional singles from the album. It peaked at number 76 in the United States, being one of Gaga's lowest charting singles. However, this could be attributed to a lack of push. By May 2014, the ARTPOP era was left in quite an interesting but disheartening state. It was all too clear that the era was over aside from the tour kicking off that same month. At this point, roughly 9 months since its start, the era had only 2 official music videos. The Do What You Want video was stuck in limbo, looking more unlikely to ever see the light of day with every passing month. The app was off to a bad start, essentially being abandoned mere months after its launch. Reception to ARTPOP, the album, was mixed, as many either didn't understand it or flat out did not like it, not to mention how crowded 2013 already was with so many high-profile releases. Although ARTPOP did manage to top several charts and make it onto several year-end lists, and despite its lukewarm reception, ARTPOP still managed to be the 9th global best-selling album of 2013, with 2.3 million copies sold worldwide despite being released at the very end of the year. The singles themselves were not smash hits like Gaga's previous, and overall the album was viewed as a commercial failure. So this leaves the question, what went wrong with the ARTPOP era? The fact of the matter is that there were several behind-the-scenes issues that ultimately ruined what was supposed to be a revolutionary era in both Gaga's career and pop music. The ARTPOP era was a very dark time personally for Gaga. For the entirety of the era, she was at war with her label, her own team, and herself. As the era began, many of her team allegedly abandoned her as it became clear that ARTPOP wasn't doing as well as her previous efforts. This included her own longtime manager Troy Carter, who had been with Gaga since 2007, before the release of her debut album. Troy split from Gaga just a week before ARTPOP's release due to the two of them allegedly having 2 different visions of what Gaga's career and future at the time should look like. Allegedly, her breakdown during her performance of Dope at the 2013 YouTube Music Awards was due to the fact that Troy had left her that same day. Imagine having no manager just a week before your album is scheduled to release. Gaga also wanted certain songs to be pushed from the record as singles, but her label pushed back at almost every corner. She wanted to provide visuals for every song on the record, but her label would not afford her the time or budget. Lady Gaga was no stranger to controversy, but the controversy during the ARTPOP era wasn't exactly working in her favor like it had done in previous eras. The relative underperformance of Applause, the Do What You Want debacle, as well as events like the aforementioned YouTube Awards breakdown and her 2014 South by Southwest performance were all used as ammo when discussing her downfall. The abandonment of the ARTPOP app was actually partially due to the fact that Gaga and her management were parting ways. Ultimately, with so much chaos, disorganization, and changes in management going on in the midst of an album era, it was nearly impossible for Gaga to deliver the pop culture shifting experience that she so desired. I vividly remember the lead up to ARTPOP and how proudly she spoke of this record. She had started teasing it in 2011, a whole 2 years before its actual release. She hadn't shown so much excitement and pride in any of her bodies of work in her entire career. It is my belief that Gaga truly intended ARTPOP to be a career-defining, pop culture-shifting body of work, something that transcended all forms of media. She wanted it to be an all-consuming experience unlike anything ever before. which makes it even more sad that it did not resonate with audiences nor make the impact that she would have intended it to. And I do think it's important to note that while ARTPOP and its singles didn't do the numbers of her previous hits, the album still did very well. Just Dance, Bad Romance, and Born This Way are all amongst some of the best-selling singles of all time, mind you, and I believe it's unfair to expect an artist to continue to push those kinds of numbers. Lady Gaga had more than proven herself by this point, and that's ultimately why I love ARTPOP so much. She wasn't concerned with creating radio fodder or something that would appeal to the masses. She was only concerned with creating art, something that reflected who she was. ARTPOP was fearless, it was unapologetic, it was unafraid to be crazy and disorienting and ugly. That's what Lady Gaga has always meant to me as an artist, and it's why she will always be one of my favorites. Lady Gaga is a human, and as a human we grow and evolve. It's important to understand that we're looking at how an artist's discography grows and evolves, but I will always feel like ARTPOP was the last album of a certain Lady Gaga that we will never get back. And that could be attributed to the aforementioned growth, but also the fact that perhaps what she went through during that era drove her to move forward and never return. Regardless of how the world looks at ARTPOP, I will always regard it for what it truly is, an ambitious, diverse, genre-defying body of work created by one of the greatest minds in pop music to ever grace the earth.